What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. My review of The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 5, Chapter 13, The Jedi. Now, we all know that episode length doesn't necessarily dictate quality, but when we have an episode titled The Jedi, it's nice to see that it's actually the second longest episode in the season so far. Started high and got that little 35. Nice. Now, as we examine the episode, you're going to find many areas where they could have really improved upon. Oh, come on, this is a great episode! And they really don't waste any time. They don't really hide the ball. We see Ahsoka right off the bat, and the way she's taking out these guys is awesome. I think the lightsaber effects were on point. Love the way she was taking out each guy one by one in creative different ways. I like the way she cut through the tree and killed the one guy, and then the chunk that was cut out of the tree she used to force push into another guy, taking him out. And then as the other guy runs away, she's standing there all badass and the tree falls. That was pretty dope. We got Michael Biehn in this episode. I can't believe I didn't know about his casting. Kyle Reese, Corporal Hicks, Johnny Ringo, Coffee from the Abyss movie. I like the way the compound was laid out. It was a little plain when you have the shot of Mando sort of walking in through the gates and you had the walls of the city. It felt a little too plain. They could have maybe added a little more texture or character to that. And, you know, it stands out when you have the desolation of the forest around it. It sort of looks a little plain. It's a nitpick, I know, but for me that was a little weird. It looked a little too green screen. Walking through the city was fine. They obviously had a limited set. I think that they spent time in better areas that are a little more interesting. Now Ahsoka is not just dispatching bad guys for no reason. Turns out there's an evil magistrate there that is sort of desolating the planet and for the most part is enslaving the inhabitants of the city. We understand that she's a bad guy. Bad girl. So you have Magistrate Morgan and you have Michael Biehn playing the evil henchman Lang. I think he was a hired gun. And the actress that portrays Magistrate Morgan is actually Bruce Lee's goddaughter. So I thought it was fitting that we had that samurai, martial arts-inspired fight scene at the end that takes place in what would appear to be like an oriental garden. So the Magistrate is evil. She's held up in this compound, this big walled area on this planet, and she's enslaved everyone inside. Ahsoka is there to basically free everyone, and she gives her one day to decide if you're going to surrender or not. And then after that one day, Ahsoka's coming for you. So then we see the Mandalorian and the child show up. They go to the gates. Michael Biehn's there. Notices the Beskar armor. Notices that he's a Mandalorian. They let him in because he says he's still with the guild, which was kind of a lie, but not really. He makes his way to see the magistrate, and I thought that this was actually a good way for him to locate the Jedi, is not just to ask around and have some random person happen to know exactly where the Jedi is. He's actually hired by the magistrate to kill the Jedi. And so the magistrate has a pretty good idea where Ahsoka is and points him in that direction. I thought that was a good way to do that. It felt organic. It felt like it made sense. And it allows the story to move quickly. And the reason the story had to move quickly up until this point is because we got to have these really slow, quiet moments that I thought perfectly contrasted the action within the episode, but was extremely necessary. Because we didn't have, these two Jedi Force users meet and then immediately she can decipher exactly what the child's language is, or he's like writing stuff on the ground, and she's, oh, okay, and they can't directly speak one-on-one, but she can sort of read his mind. But it's not a crystal clear reading of a chain of events. It's murky, it's muddled. And I may be getting a little bit ahead of myself because I'm omitting a great little interaction where Mando and Ahsoka meet for the first time. They sort of go one-on-one. We actually get to see the Beskar up against lightsabers. But until you see someone actually use it to block a lightsaber strike, you're really not sure if this Beskar is all it's cracked up to be, and it is. So back to those slow, quiet moments that I talked about before. I thought that was very necessary. I thought it was beneficial to decipher who the child was. And we don't get a ton of information, but we do get some very important information. We find out that the child is actually named Grogu. 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 Okay. When you have names like Yoda and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn and even Mace Windu, Din Djarin, I was expecting something a little less ogreish. So we find out the child's name, Grogu. We find out that he was trained by many masters at the temple on Coruscant, and then someone took him from the temple and he was hidden. Did this happen before Anakin came to the temple and killed all the younglings? Did this happen directly after? Was this child hidden from Anakin's rampage? and then discovered later and then taken away. So the child ages really slowly, so I doubt that we're going to have, in season 3, the child starts to talk and can rattle off all these details. But I'm curious to see if other Jedi can interact with him and maybe reveal more of his past. I don't know if it's super crucial to the story moving forward, but I'd be interested to know. We're only halfway through the episode, but at this point I'm thinking Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka is superb. She's playing the character well. She's not being a super badass. She's sort of reserved and understated, which at this point in Ahsoka's life, she should be. And as Ahsoka is expressing her hesitation to train Grogu because of his attachment to Din Djarin, you really kind of see on her face, and maybe it's because it's the fan in me reading into this, but you can sort of see on her face the pain and the recollection of, she's referring to Anakin straight up. She's seen what that attachment can do and what it can do to the best of us. Meaning Anakin turning into Vader. She doesn't really share all this with Din Djarin, which I think was good. Let's hold some of that back. Let's not just throw it all out there. We don't need a giant exposition dump. I think we're all Star Wars fans and we're familiar. But I liked how she revealed a little bit of that. And I think that this, once again, it goes back to the actress portraying the character. As she relays this information, there's a sense of hurt on her face, There's a lot of pain there. I think they had a pretty good plan going in. Din Djarin's like, listen, they think they hired me to come kill you. They're not going to expect us working together. And as promised, Ahsoka rolls up the next day, like a badass, taking people out one at a time, cuts this big bell they were using in half, and that sort of falls inside the compound. Lightsaber effect still on point. Strolls right up to the magistrate, has Mando's Beskar shoulder plate with the signet on it, throws it down, says, your bounty hunter failed, and the trap at that point is set. Because at this point the two are going to work together. Ahsoka's going to draw their fire, and Mando's going to be able to slip in and save some of the people that are about to be executed. So I think for the most part this was believable. It worked well, and it allowed us to have two separate standoffs towards the end. You had Michael Bihn's character of Lang, versus Mando, kind of a very much a high noon situation, and as those two were going back and forth. It was understated. It was subtle. Mando, of course, gets the best of him, which was kind of sad. I wish they would have done a little bit more with this character. Maybe have Michael Bihn's character get the best of Mando briefly, but still sort of have the upper hand for a second, and then Mando has to turn the tables. But I thought that they could have done a little bit more with that character. I would love to see Michael Biehn be a little more sinister, a little more psychotic maybe, a little more Johnny Ringo. And of course, while that showdown is happening, we have the showdown inside with Ahsoka and with the magistrate, which was handled pretty well. I think you could have done a little more stunt choreography. And we get to see a Beskar staff sort of going, toe-to-toe with sabers. We see a little bit of the magistrate's skill, temporarily disarming Ahsoka, at least, causing Ahsoka to lose one of her sabers. But then Ahsoka gets the best of her. Doesn't kill her right away. She wants some information. She wants her to answer a question. She wants to know where her master is. You're maybe thinking Moff Gideon. No. She wants to know where Grand Admiral Thrawn is. And this makes sense because the last time we saw her was at the end of Rebels, and she was about to set off with Sabine to find Ezra and Grand Admiral Thrawn. And I'm curious to see if we're going to see any of the elements of the Thrawn trilogy that were made so popular back in the 90s sort of injected into The Mandalorian. I'm excited to see what they will do with that information. Will we actually see Grand Admiral Thrawn as maybe the main bad guy in Season 3? I don't know. Will we actually see Ezra train Grogu instead of Luke? I guess it's possible. Unfortunately, I think that Dave Filoni is kind of living out his Rebel dreams, his Clone Wars dreams, and we're going to get a lot of that influence, and we're missing out on what's actually, more relevant would be the OT characters. And at the end of the episode, Ahsoka says, listen, I know I said I would train the kid if you help me with this task, but I'm not going to do it. But listen, go to this other planet and do this thing. And this is where we start feeling like the Rise of Skywalker. This season is turning into go to this planet and ask for this person, or go to this planet to get a thing, to go somewhere else to talk to a person, and then that person's going to tell you to go do another thing. I think at some point it'd be nice to maybe pick up some of these characters and take them with you. I mean, why wouldn't Ahsoka take off with him? Help guide him on his mission. I mean, she saw that the child, Grogu, has Force abilities. And I think that even if you're not going to train him, and you want to make sure that that's not perverted in any way or twisted, or, heaven forbid, he falls into the Empire's hands. I mean, listen, Din Djarin's straight up telling you, listen, the Empire is looking for him. And I think that would have made a lot of sense to have Ahsoka travel with him. I mean, why is she on the planet? To help this little civilization rebuild? I I don't know. It seems odd. Or maybe she's about to take off on her own little side quest to go try to find Grand Admiral Thrawn. Are we going to see Sabine, next episode? Is this all we're going to see of Ahsoka this season? I can't imagine that's the case, but you never know. All right, it's time to rate this sucker. I'm actually going to give it a 9. Yes, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. There are things that I would have changed here and there. There are some things that I would have rather seen done, and we can get to those in a minute. But I think for what we have, with the story that they wanted to tell, with the characters they wanted to use, I think they did really well with it. Nothing's perfect. It is possible for an episode to get a 10 on this show, but in this case, we're going to stick with a 9. All right, bonus time. Here's what I would have done. The one major misstep with this episode is that Ahsoka should have been Luke Skywalker. I think it makes a little more sense for Luke Skywalker to be in the middle of some of these small skirmishes, flying around the galaxy trying to right small wrongs, because he just defeated Darth Vader. He's not 100% sure how to rebuild the entire Jedi Council. Where do you start? Maybe he's a little overwhelmed. Maybe he knows he can handle these small skirmishes, right these small wrongs, and while it may not be a big picture fix, at least it's something that he can put his arms around and control. And I think, yes, you recast Luke. If you want to use Sebastian Stan, if you want to use any other actor, that's fine. You go ahead and do it, and you do it now, and you get a younger Luke, roughly 25, I guess 30, and that's who you roll with. And you can have the child be a catalyst or a motivator for Luke to kind of point him in a direction. Now he has a Padawan, and because there is a connection there, but Luke has not experienced what Ahsoka has experienced. So he doesn't think that the connection is wrong or bad. He doesn't know that yet. He hasn't seen that side. So he encourages Din Djarin to stay with them. And Din Djarin's mission to deliver the child to a Jedi, well, that does end. But now his new mission begins to serve as a protector to those two as they train. And Ahsoka becomes an Obi-Wan / Yoda mentor to Luke. And, because that would be appropriate. I mean, and oh my gosh, can you imagine the conversations they can have with, I knew your father before he was Vader. I knew him as Anakin. I knew him as good. And to tell of that rise and that fall. And for Luke to learn about that, first-hand account, first-hand knowledge of what actually happened to his father. How emotional and touching and jarring that would have been, And then to have that influence him and make him become a better Jedi Master. Yeah, that's right, I said Jedi Master. I don't care what your new Star Wars book says. Luke was a master. And to have the Mandalorian be there in whatever capacity he needs to be, serving as a protector, joining with Bo-Katan and finding more about the Mandalorians and about that history. And I don't think anything that happened in this episode disqualifies my theory. I think at some point we're still going to have the DNA stolen from the child, Grogu, and used in some way to power up Moff Gideon and become Snoke. I still think that's going to happen. I think at the very least you're going to have the DNA from the child used to create Snoke. But I know. Well, But anyway, y'all, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Hit like if you don't mind. Subscribe if you like the content. Y'all have a blessed day, and I will see you next time.